most high-carbon steel. Here's how I harden my hand-forged tools. So this is the process you're going to use with most high-carbon steels. Like this knife I'm working on, it sat in the water a little bit after forging. This is 1075 high-carbon steel. I would treat this exactly like that flint striker. This still has some forging to do on it though. But what happens here is essentially the structure of the steel becomes more crystallized, making the steel much harder than it was, but more brittle. After hardening the steel, you temper it, and that gives you a balance of hardness and brittleness. And depending on what the tool is, you treat it different ways. Things like a hammer will be tempered to be a fair bit softer than, say, a knife blade. That's because in a knife, I want a really hard edge that's going to stay sharp and allow just a little bit of flex so the blade can bend if it's being wrenched on. But with a hammer, that same hardness would cause the hammer to crack when I use it on the anvil. So a hammer is tempered to be a fair bit more soft than a knife, even when they're made of the same steel. Now, to harden a high-carbon steel tool, all you gotta do is quench it in oil. So I just keep a paint can with some oil in it. I just use vegetable oil. Now, once the steel is hardened, you need to temper it as well. Tempering is a process of heating it back up to a lower temperature. That takes away the brittleness in the steel and adds more springiness. It's a necessary step, or else your steel will be as brittle as glass. There we go, into the quench. Now we'll test the hardness with a file. The teeth just skitter right off of it. They don't bite into the steel at all, so that's what you're looking for. This is thin metal, so I need to be careful not to overheat it. Just hold it in the flame right above the coals. Pull it out every now and then, because that allows it to oxidize for that straw color. You can see the oil burning on the little tail there like a candle. There we go. Scrape it all off, and it should go back up to straw again. It's pretty subtle, but that's the right temperature. Now I'm going to cool it off in water. Just cooling it off very slowly in the water. Don't want to shock the steel and risk cracking it. So just dipping a little bit at a time. This is cooled off now. Give that edge a little bit more of a polish. Now I usually use a block brush with much stiffer bristles, but this is what I have on me right now, so it gets the job done. The great thing about blacksmithing is you can almost always make do with what you have, even to the point of taking low carbon steel and making it high carbon steel, if you know how to do it right. Well, moment of truth. Well, she works. Bit of a Waihi jasper from the Idaho-Oregon border, and junk steel from a car spring. Reforged, given new life. It's the awesome thing about blacksmithing. Here's how I harden my hand-forged tool.
All right, shalom, shalom. First off, give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakadash, giving double honors to the apostles and the elders of GMS. Salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, all the men and the women who follow. This is the brother Kratazah from the GMS Nebraska camp, coming back at you with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. This lesson being entitled, Stay on Fire for This Truth. All right, so we just seen the two videos. You had the guy, let me see. There we go.
Here's how I harden my hand.
So we see how he showed us the process of how to forge steel. And the reason why I wanted to to get this process through the spirit, this is the process that we go through. So, Lord, what is edifying? So, let me get a scripture real quick. This is 2 Peter chapter 1, and let me see. I'll start at verse 3. It says, "According that His divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of Him that hath called us to glory and virtue, whereby given unto us exceeding great and precious promises. By these ye may be partakers of the divine nature." Right. So we were promised things that the kingdom of heaven, everlasting life, so on and so forth. All right. It says that by these ye may be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through the lust. And besides this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and virtue knowledge, and knowledge temperance, and the temperance patience, the patience godliness. I'm not going to go through all these words, but I do want to go into temperance. Okay, so what is temperance? The Strong's G1466, ekratia. All right, what it says: self-control, the virtue of one who masters his desires and passions, especially his sensual appetites. All right, so this is very important that we control ourselves and have complete control over ourselves, especially in a sensual, um, way. Just make sure that you're in complete control of your desires, as far as like women go, as far as the world, as far as um, things that you like, things that you want, things that you used to fail to. Because Satan knows your mind. Satan knows what your body wants. We're in this flesh, so your body is still going to crave, um, you know, things that it shouldn't. From back when you were in the world. So we have to keep that self control. Now, that's where that word temper it's the same thing as this. He's tempering the steel. And with the steel, what you do, you heat it to a high degree. So let's watch this guy. As you can see, the blade that he's making is heated to a high temperature. That's why it's glowing red, and he's beating on it. All right, this is the process that we're going through. Okay, and that's why I say you have to stay hot in this truth, or stay on fire in this truth. To keep you being the blade, you have to stay hot. Because what happens? Let's see. What happens if you beat on cold steel with the hammer while tempering a blade? Beating on cold steel with the hammer, especially during the tempering process of a blade, can introduce unwanted stresses and potentially damage the blade. So if you're not on fire, if you're not, matter of fact, let's just grab it real quick. 2 Peter 1:10, it says, wherefore the rather, brethren, give all diligence to make your calling and election sure. For if you do these things, you shall never fail. So if you're not on fire, if you're not giving all diligence, all right, if you're not going all out in this truth, doing what you can, then your fire is going out. And if your fire is going out, it can introduce unwanted stresses and potentially damage the blade. It can damage you. Okay? It says it's generally recommended to avoid hitting a blade while it's cold, as this can lead to chipping or cracking. And if you chip or you crack in this truth, man, you're going to fall out. So Revelation 3:15, it says, I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would that thou wert cold or hot. Right? So there is no, it's like here, I'll keep reading. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. So you got to be that hot blade in order to take the chastening of the Lord. Because coming into this truth, man, you're going to take a beating. Shit's going to happen to you. But you got to stay hot in this thing, man. You got to stay hot for this truth. Lord, really, y'all following me. Ecclesiastes 2:1, it says, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. It says, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. You're going to go through some things. It's just going to happen. It's not going to all be, peaches and cream. It says to cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at the last end. Keep that fire hot. Keep that fire hot. So that when the beating comes, when the hard times come, all right, when shit don't go your way, you see how it's able to bend? It's bending and not breaking. He's getting it into shape. He's literally beating it into shape. And that's what the Lord is doing when we go through these hard times. All right, the Lord is literally beating us into shape. And you see look how it got like a little bend to it. And now, as it's hot, he's beating on it, and it's getting into the shape that he wants it. Wait till he puts it down flat. Like you can see that it's warped. But look, you see how it's up, and now he's literally beating it out. Now, if he had cold steel and he did that, he could break the tip, or it could break the blade. So you have to be hot. You have to be on fire in order to endure the chastening of the Lord. It says, whatsoever, verse 4, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate. For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. So just like they're putting these blades in the fire, we are in the fire. All right, and acceptable men are going to be tried in the fire. Acceptable men are going to keep that fire when the hammer starts striking, because we don't want to be broken. Now, I'm going to play this one more time because it's very spiritual how he explains it, and we're going to stop it in yeah, bear with me with these noises, but let's listen to what he got to say, and we're gonna break it down.
Hand-forged tools. So this is the process you're going to use with most high-carbon steels. Like this knife I'm working on, it sat in the water a little bit after forging. This is 1075 high-carbon steel. I would treat this exactly like that flint striker. This still has some forging to do on it though. But what happens here is essentially the structure of the steel becomes more crystallized, making the steel much harder than it was, but more brittle. After hard.
Right. So when you come into this truth, you got to go into the fire. All right, and that fire is the adversity is you coming into this truth, putting off the old man and becoming a new creature. When that steel goes into that forge and it heats up, it becomes a new creature. All right, and the beating on it allows it to be shaped and molded into the way Yahweh Shem Shai wants us to be. All right, so let me back this up one more time. Hold on, y'all bear with me.
So this is the process you're going to use with most high-carbon steels. Like this knife I'm working on, it sat in the water a little bit after forging. This is 1075 high-carbon steel. I would treat this exactly like that flint striker. This still has some forging to do on it though. But what happens here is essentially the structure of the steel becomes more crystallized, making the steel much harder than it was, but more brittle.
Right, so when you come into this truth, it's once you forge it, you're going to become harder but more brittle, right? Because you're going to go through the chastening of the Lord, and you're going to harden yourself to the world. Yet still you have to be brittle. Yet you still have to be humble. All right, you have to still be of a contrite spirit. That's the hardness and the brittleness, okay?
After hardening the steel, you temper it, and that gives you a balance of hardness and brittleness. And depending on what the tool is, you treat it different ways. Things like a hammer will be tempered to be a fair bit softer than, say, a knife blade. That's because in a knife, I want a really hard edge that's...
Hey, and some brothers in this truth are knives, and some brothers in these truths are hammers. All right, it's two different spirits, but they're both forged, okay? And, some people, like that knife, it needs a hard edge to cut, okay? But the hammer, although it's beating, you have to be more brittle with it. He's gonna explain it real quick. Hold on. Come on. $100. This is not what I'm trying to do.
Here's how I harden my hand-forged tools. So this is the process you're going to use with most high-carbon steels. Like this knife I'm working on, it sat in the water a little bit after forging. This is 1075 high-carbon steel. I would treat this exactly like that flint striker. This still has some forging to do on it though. But what happens here is essentially the structure of the steel becomes more crystallized, making the steel much harder than it was, but more brittle. After hardening the steel, you temper it, and that gives you a balance of hardness and brittleness. And depending on what the tool is, you treat it different ways. Things like a hammer will be tempered to be a fair bit softer than, say, a knife blade. That's because in a knife, I want a really hard edge that's going to stay sharp and allow just a little bit of flex so the blade can bend if it's being wrenched on. But with a hammer, that same hardness would cause the hammer to crack when I use it on the anvil. So a hammer is tempered to be a fair bit more soft than a knife, even when they're made of the same steel.
So that's some brothers are more forged than others, and everybody's nobody is just like, there's no one set way to be in this truth. There's all different kind of spirits. You have some brothers who are leaders, you have some brothers who are followers, you have some brothers who are more austere, you have some more brothers who are more kind and lighthearted. All right, but all are trying the fire, all are going through that fire and going through that adversity. All are being beat with the hammer of the Lord, okay, to be shaped for the job is supposed to be.
Now, to harden a high carbon steel tool, all you gotta do is quench it in oil. So I just keep a paint can with some oil in it. I just use
Right. So in the final step is to quench it in oil. Right. So what is the oil? Let's let's see. Yeah, we're gonna jump back to Matthew 25:1. It says, "Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish, and they that were foolish took no oil with them." So if you ain't got no oil, how you gonna quench your sword? How are you gonna quench yourself? All right, when you quench it, that's what makes it hard. That's what makes it tough. That's what sets it into the final stage. But this oil is representation of the scriptures. It's a representation of this knowledge and this truth. So you have to have the oil, okay? It says, "But the wise took oil in the vessels with their lamps, while the bridegroom tarried. They all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out and meet him. And all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered and said, Not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they were not ready. And they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterwards came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open unto us. But he answered and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. So nobody knows when Yahushua is coming back, but we can identify that we are in the last days. So we have to keep our oil with us. Again, going back to the analogy, when he puts this steel into this vat of oil, that's the final step. It's going to lock that piece of steel in. That piece of steel that could have been a leaf spring off a car, all right, and it's going through the fire, and it's been beat and shaped and beat and filed and shaped, and beat into a Bowie knife, and then once they put it in this oil, that's the final step. All right, that's the same as us coming to this truth. You could have been, I don't know, a Crip, and now you come into this truth, and you put off the former conversation of the old man. You stop hanging out with those old friends. Stop doing those old Crip activities. You start serving the Lord. All right, and this oil, all right, this word, this truth, you immerse yourself in it, just like he's going to immerse his blade into the steel. All right, and it covers you. Literally, this word is going to cover you. This oil is going to cover you. All right, and it's going to lock you into place with Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Lord's will, you understand what I'm going with this.
Use vegetable oil. Now, once the steel is hardened, you need to temper it as well. Tempering is a process of heating it back up to a lower temperature. That takes away the brittleness in the steel and adds more springiness. It's a necessary step, or else your steel will be as brittle as glass.
Saki, so after you go into the oil, you have to stay back into the fire. You have to go right back into the fire, right? So once you're introduced into the oil, that's you coming into this. Well, that's you having the full understanding of the truth. I say, you going into the oil is you having the full understanding of the truth, and then you still got to go right back into the fire. Okay, you still got to go through adversity. The end is not yet. You still got to go through some things, and we're going to go through some things until we're delivered. But the deliverer is coming. Yahweh Shem Yahushai is coming. All right, he's not going to suffer us too much longer. Let's see if there's any more else on this I want to get.
There we go, into the quench. Now we'll test the hardness with a file. The teeth just skitter right off of it. They don't bite into the steel at all, so that's what you're looking for. This is thin metal, so I need to be careful not to overheat it. Just hold it in the flame right above the coals. Pull it out every now and then, because that allows it to oxidize.
Yeah, and, hey, the Lord's going to give us a break. We're not going to always be in the fire. The Lord will throw us a bone. Just like he's saying, you got to put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out. The Lord's he's going to put you in that fire. But what does the scripture say? You make a way to escape. First Corinthians chapter 10 and 13, it says, there has no temptation taking you, but such as is common to man, but the Most High is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. So temper, temptation, tempted, it's not a coincidence that all these words are similar, because it's all going into self-control, because you have to control yourself around your temptations, right? And when you're blacksmithing a blade, you are in control of the steel. He's in total control of what's going on with this blade. Okay? Hey, at the end of the day, the Most High is totally in control of how we're being shaped. All right, Lord's will, we all endure, and he's shaping us to be in this truth as men of the Lord and deem us worthy of salvation.
Straw color. You can see the oil burning on the little tail there like a candle. There we go. Scrape it all off, and it should go back up to straw again. It's pretty subtle, but that's the right temperature. Now I'm going to cool it off in water. Just cooling it off very slowly in the water. Don't want to shock the steel and risk cracking it. So just dipping a little bit at a time. This is cooled off now. Give that edge a little bit more of a polish.
Yeah, so that's all I really wanted to get with this. Lord's will, you understand what I was trying to put out, and you were edified. And want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakar, giving double honors to the apostles and the elders of GMS. Salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, all the men and the women who follow. Shalom.